So welcome to the walkthrough for Edexcel Higher. It's paper 3 from the June 2018 series, so calcs allowed, and let's get started. So for number 1, don't really care about the context until later. For now, all you care about is type of correlation. Doesn't ask you to describe the relationship. Describing the relationship is when you do get in the keywords. Type of correlation, negative. Job done, move on. Now, part B, I'll stay on this page. Part B says Christina is 11 and can do it in 12 seconds. That would be an outlier. Give a reason why. So keep it simple, really. It doesn't follow the general trend. It wouldn't fit on the line of best fit or words to that effect. And then we've got for part C, Debbie is a 15-year-old. She reckons that means she can do it. She can do it in 12 seconds as well. I'm sorry, Debbie, there's no guarantee, but the best thing I would say is it's outside the range of data. The data kind of finishes before we get to 14-year-olds. So just stick with Debbie is outside of the range of data of this diagram. I mean, if you want to be stupid about it. So Debbie, that means when you're 17, 18, you're going to do it in 0 seconds or whatever. And, beat world records, don't think so. But stick with outside the range of data, or even poor extrapolation is the posh way of doing it. Question 2, pretty standard, expand and simplify. So don't forget, treat it like 2 separate questions. 5 times P, 5 times 3, minus 2 times 1, and a minus times a minus gives us the positive. Simplifying the p's, there's 9 of them, and the numbers, 15 take away 2, we get 13. Cheated number 3, but let's explain where my answers come from and the fact it's not the only right answer. So the area of the trapezium, don't go counting squares, that's 2. All right, along the bottom we've got 7, and the distance between them is 4. So 2 plus 7 is 9, halved is 4.5, and 4.5 gives you the average of the parallel sides. And you times it by the distance between them. So it's 18. So for your bottom triangle, you want anything where its height and its length of base multiply to make 36. Because obviously being a triangle, it must halve to make 18. So 9 along 4 up would have worked. Didn't have to be right angled, could have been isosceles. Loads of different right answers for number 3. Number 4, as always, I've written them out properly on my worked answers, so check that out on my past papers page. I'll just describe them here. So first thing that's gone wrong is on the first branch, the probabilities don't add up to 1. And on the top second row, the 0.35 and 0.65 have been reversed, or they're incorrect, they're on the wrong branches, however you want to phrase it, as long as you spot them. And nothing wrong with circling them, by the way. If you do struggle to explain yourself, don't worry about doing stuff like that. It's perfectly acceptable to just, picture says 1,000 words and all that. Explain it in your own words, but feel free to use diagrams if you struggle. Number 5, pretty much I'd say as obvious as it gets, SOHCAHTOA. So to find an angle, you're going to press the shift or the second function button, whichever calc you've got. To find the angle, it's the hypotenuse and the adjacent we've got. So this is a triangle. So we're going to do inverse cos of the adjacent over the hypotenuse, and we get 50.4788, in other words 50.5. The length of side AB is reduced by 1 centimetre, so in other words this is happening. All right, will the value of cos of ABC increase or decrease? And it will. increase because 7 over 10 is bigger than 7 over 11. Feel free to have that argument in decimals as well. Question 6. Good old probability adding up to 1 happens on most sets of papers nowadays. Adds up to 1. There's 18 blue counters. Probability that Bob takes a red is twice. So if that's x, that's got to be double. So we know that the total of this line, that's 3x, plus them added together is 0.7. So we take away 0.7 from both sides. And we know that x is 0.1, and that relates to white, and red relates to 0.2. Now, to work out how many red counters are in the bag, lots of ways of going about it. I prefer going about it the non-calc way. The knowledge we've got is about blue. A probability of 0.45 is 18. So what's the probability of a ninth as much? So divide by 9, divide by 9. So the probability of 0.05 would mean we've got 2 counters, and red is 0.20, which obviously is 4 times as much. So we say there's 8 red counters in the bag. A marble's going to be taken at random. There must be an even number of marbles in the box. A multitude of ways of explaining it. All right, you can take the contradictory approach and say if it was odd, you can't get a probability of exactly a half, because you could go the daft route of saying you can't have half a marble. All right, any words to that effect, or you just say you could only halve even numbers. All right, to have a probability of 0.5. Lots of different ways. Don't overcomplicate. Keep it simple. It's only worth a mark. So some solving. We don't like that over 2. So let's multiply both sides by 2. So on the left it disappears. On the right hand side we double everything. Let's isolate the x's. Let's add x to both sides, while adding 14 to both sides. And we divide both sides by 5. We get 19 over 5. Doesn't say how to give your answer. You could go 3 4/5 or 3.8, personal preference. Number 8, good old hidden algebra, setting up and solving. As soon as you're told a fact that something is double something, but you don't know either of them, let one of them be x. You could go x and x over 2. I'm not a fan of having fractions and x's if you can help it. And then we'll go back to the fact we've got a pentagon. Don't forget the formula for the sum of the internal angles is number of sides take away 2 multiplied by 180. So for a pentagon, it's 5 take away 2 times 180. The total of these angles is 540, and that's where we get the equation from. So the 3 x's, which we don't know, added, don't leave out the 90, very easy to forget that. The rest all add up to 330. Now we've set it up, we need to get it solved. Take away 330 from both sides. And when you find x, don't congratulate yourself too much because you haven't yet finished, because it does want angle BCD. That's that one. That's the one with 2x on it, not x. So that 70 needs to be doubled. Number 9. So this is one of those standard formy questions where you just need to stick it all in your calc. Use brackets as appropriate, as long as you get the answer of 517.5, etc. Now we don't care about the etc. because it only wants the answer to 3 significant figures. There's the 3 most important numbers. So the 4,520 needs to become 4.52 times 10. What's the power? Well, we need to move the decimal point or divide by 10 3 times. On to the next one. So Lottie's having a statement. Well, if you increase something by 10%, you're multiplying it by 1.1. If you increase something by 5%, you're multiplying it by 1.05. I've scrolled off, but notice, remember it's cubed and it's all square rooted. So the value, Lottie says the value of t will increase because both w and d are increased. And here's why she's wrong. Because ultimately, by multiplying by 1.1 and dividing by 1.05 cubed, you would get the multiplier of this 0.97. And what would you put in your words down the bottom? You'd say that this is less than 1. You're multiplying by a number less than 1, so the answer is actually going to decrease, not increase. All words to that effect. Number 10. Do note that lamp A flashing every 20 seconds is automatically a factor of 120 seconds. So whenever lamp C flashes, lamp A is going to flash anyway. So we can almost sack off lamp A. It's going to flash every 6 times lamp A flashes. Lamp C will flash. So we only need to worry about lamp B and C flashing at the same time. So all we need to do really, you've got a calc, the numbers aren't horrible. You could do factor trees, but I would just list factors. Alright, list multiples of 45. So start with 45 and just keep going. You've got a calc or you've got mental arithmetic. Eventually you get to 360. And if you do the same there, as I say, by default, lamp A will flash at the same time as well. So they will flash all at the same time every 360 seconds, which is every 6 minutes. Another one of them, though, you haven't yet finished the question. How many times in 1 hour? So 6 minutes goes into 1 hour, 60 minutes, 10 times. Number 11. So Jerry's bought a house. We don't know how much he paid, but he made a profit. 20%, so his multiplier would have been 1.2. Maya made a loss of 10%, so her multiplier would have been 0.9. So yep, it's reverse percentages, but double reverse percentages, because we've got the multipliers working along that way. We need to reverse the process. So yep, on your calc, 162,000 divided by 0.9 divided by 1.2, you get the reassuringly nice round number of 150,000. Number 12. I've cheated a bit because I want to illustrate a point as well as avoiding being rubbish with technology. So, my point is, doesn't matter how big your triangle is, as long as you pick a sensible one, that's one that goes through corners, you're fine. If you look at the purple triangle, it's got a height of 6 and it's got a width of 4, and 6 divided by 4 gives you 1.5. If you look at the green triangle, you get a height of 12. You get a width of 8, and 12 divided by 8 gives you the same answer. So how big your triangle is doesn't matter. All right, when you're doing it on estimating the gradient of a curve, don't do really small triangles. But this is a straight line, so not a problem. But do try and pick. You wouldn't have picked that vertex, for example, that corner there, because who knows? It's kind of halfway. It's not really. No, don't pick that one. Explain what the gradient represents. So it's volume over time, and it's going up. So I would just put the rate at which the container is filling up. Words to that effect. The graph intersects at 4. Alright, so it's got a y equals mx plus c. C is 4. Explain what that represents. That's the starting amount of liquid that was already in the container at the point when whatever the tap was. You're going to put the tap was turned on at this point. So anything along the lines of that was already there. On we go. So all this revolves around knowledge about area scale factors, linear scale factors, and volume scale factors. Don't forget, if you're going linear, area and volume, if you double something's if you double something's length and width, you actually double its area, and you double its volume. So if you know your scale factor linear, you can square it and cube it to find the area and volumes, as long as they are similar shapes. And that works in reverse as well. You can go from area to linear by square rooting. And that's what we need to do here. You're told surface area of A to B is 3 to 4. And that's surface area. So the multiplier to go from there to there is you times it by 4/3. 3 times 4/3 is 4. To work backwards, you divide by 4/3 and so on. So we have our area multiplier. What we don't have is our volume multiplier. So we need to work backwards. Take your area multiplier, go back to linear. You square root it. So the square root of 4/3 is your linear scale factor. But we want to work with volume. So volume, our linear scale factor, needs to be cubed. And then it throws in the spanner, the volume of B. So we actually need to work backwards from B to A. So although a scale factor is a multiplier, we're working backwards. We need to divide the 10 by this horrible number. Hope that's explained it clearly enough. So 10 divided by the root of 4/3 cubed. Be careful on your calc, put some brackets round it if you're going to cube it, or just cube the top and bottom separately, as in 64 over 27. But as long as you get 6.495, if you round that off, 0.50. All right, 6.5. And there we go. As you can see from the diagram, should be smaller than 10. You don't answer bigger than 10, it means you've multiplied and not divided. So for number 14, there are loads of ways of going about this. If you want to keep it real basic, just take the 16 teams and go 15 plus 14 plus 13 plus 2 plus 1. You get 120, and they're going to play 2 matches, so you double it. So it's one possibility. Another one is just do 16 times 15. All right, lots of ways of going about it. Or just put yourself in the perspective of if you are one of the 16 hockey teams, you've got 15 potential opponents and so on. So if you've got 15 potential opponents, then you can obviously do 15 times 15 to get 225, and then there's another 15 on top to get 240. So loads of ways of cracking this one. Depends how your brain works, how you add up sequences. Lots of ways of going about it, but 240 is the correct answer. Number 15. So you've got the J. I've already split it into strips to save us time. So work out an estimate for the distance. Distance is area under a curve. So you just crack on. So first shape, I've called it A, B, C, D, but I won't bother here. What we care about are the heights. So I always like to write them on. That height, 22, 28, 32, and 35. So the distance between, in other words, the length of the base of that triangle is 5. The distance between the vertical parallel strips is all 5. So half base times height for the triangle is a half times 5 times 22. On the trapeziums, add the parallel sides and halve them. Multiply it by the distance between them, which is always 5. So for the second strip, you should get 125. 28 plus 32, that's 60. Halve it, you get 30. Times by the 5 between them, that's 150. And same as all for the last strip, but you gotta get 167.5. And when you total all them up, I get 497.5. And because of possible slight misreads, mark scheme allows 488 to 507 inclusive. Now there is a part B. Is it an under or an over? This is one of those where you can see they've given a bit of a gap. I would say because it curves like that, that's our area worked out, or in other words, that's our answer to part A. There's extra. So I would just put it's an underestimate as the curve exceeds part A, or again, words to that effect. Number 16, a strange quadratic nth term. Takes a fair bit of working out. So you've got this formula. The second term is -2. So when you're told the second term, you are told n. So let's stick in n equals 2. So a lots of 2 squared plus 2 lots of b is -2. The fourth term is 12. So the fourth term, we stick 4 in. So we get 4 squared, lots of a, and we get 4 lots of b. And as always with simultaneous equations, lots of ways of going about them. I'm just going to double the top equation. 8a, 4b, whoops, -4. And the b's are positive, same sign, subtract. So we know that a is 2. And we get our b. Let's take that top equation. So 8 is 4a plus 2b is -2. So obviously we're going to take away 8 from both sides. B is -5. We've got A and B. Haven't yet finished yet because it says find the 6th term. So we know A, we know B, and we know N. Let's stick them all in. A times N squared, that's 2 times 6 squared, so that's 72, added to B times N. That's -5 multiplied by 6. So basically it's 72 minus 30 to give us 42. Strange question that, but there we go. Bit more standard here. find an expression for nth term. So you look at differences, goes up by 2, up by 4, 6 and 8. And you look at your second differences, 2, 2, 2. Half of that is 1, so we know the sequence is going to be 1n squared. You then need to look at your square numbers and compare them to the sequence you are given. So we've got 16 and 25, and let's look at what's happening. That's take away 1, take away 2, take away 3, take away 4, nice pattern here, take away 5. We're simply taking away the number of the term. Now you could have done a takeaway and found the nth term of those, but it's only worth 2 marks, not worth overcomplicating. Number 17, we have 2 triangles, non-right angled, so I hope it's obvious. It's sine rule, cosine rule, could be double of 1, could be 1 of each. This turns out to be 1 of each. Work out the length of A to D. So I always like to call what I'm ultimately after, I like to call it X. So in order to get X, I'm going to need to know something else on this top triangle here. And the only thing they've got in common is BD. So we're going to need to work out BD. Now, if we only look at triangle B to C to D, you'll notice we have the 109 opposite the 12.5. When you know an opposite angle and side, it's sine rule. So we can say that Y is opposite to 34, so it's divided by sine, 34, is equal to our 12.5 divided by the sine of 109. Stick it in your calc, multiply by sine 34, as long as you get 7.4-ish. 7.39267. You can move on. So that now means we know what Y is. So when we look at this second triangle, we do not know an angle and the opposite side, but we do know 2 sides and the angle between them. So it's a cosine rule question. So X is opposite to 86. So we can say X squared is equal to the 2 sides squared and added minus 2 lots of those multiplied together. I get 168.55 multiplied by cos of the angle between 86. So for x squared, I'm getting 172-ish. So we square root for the correct answer, not forgetting 3 sig figs, 13.147 and so on. So 13.1. Number 18, show that it has a solution. Just sub them in. So we sub in 1. So we've got to do 1 cubed. It's a horrible 1 cubed, but never mind. Plus 1. I get 2. 2 cubed plus 2 equals 8. And something along the lines of 7 is between the 2 and the 8, hence a solution. And also, if you want to be A-level about it, stick in there it's a continuous function. Part B, rearrange. It's only worth 1 mark, folks. They only want to see you subtract x from both sides, and then you realise that you're there. So simply cube root both sides, and you're home and dry. On to part C. Now, I know students don't like the terminology, they don't like the notation. Don't let it bog you down. At the end of the day, it's saying to you, the first number is 2, stick it in. So we get the next number by subbing in 2. That'll just be the cube root of 5. And there's obviously a horrible decimal to that, but who cares? Take the cube root of 5, store it in your calc as ANS. Sometimes for most calcs it'll just be the answer you've just had, so you don't have to keep retyping out all that nonsense. So now on your calc you can just press cube root 7 minus ANS, but I'll put the cube root of 5 in, and we get 1.742-ish. Again, don't clear your calc, because to get the third and final term, the one we need to cube root 7 minus the number we've just got, 1.742, or in other words, use the ANS button on your calc. This is one of those rare questions where it doesn't say how accurate, it wants the answer. So your own choice, but if I'm given choice, I'll just go 2 DPs and have done. Number 19. So the clue is there, tan. Think about SOHCAHTOA, because that's your key. The tan of an angle is the opposite side divided by the adjacent side. So if we look at our small triangle from E, the tan of E is opposite over adjacent. That's equal to the tan of F. Well, the tan of F will be opposite over adjacent. So yeah, it starts out looking like trigonometry, but it's setting up and solving your very own quadratic. So let's get on with the massive pain of expanding and all that. Let's multiply both sides by 12x plus 31. So 12, and I expand it as you go. I'll save a bit of time. We need to multiply 6x plus 5 by 4x minus 1. So that's 24x squared. There's a minus 5 on the end, and our x terms are positive 20x, take away 6x, in other words, 14x. You've got yourselves a level quadratic, you've leveled them off. Let's make it equal to 0. Subtract 12x squared from both sides. Subtract 31x from both sides. And the minus 5 has nothing to simplify with. As always with these, if you want to solve it, if you don't like the AC method, to calc paper, feel free to use the formula. You'll get the answers of minus a quarter, which gets rejected, and 5/3. But as you know, with all these, I do them as written answers, then I do them here. So I've already factorized it. I did use the AC method originally, and it becomes 4x plus 1, 3x minus 5. So you get 2 answers. Now from this bracket, you get x is negative a quarter. Well, if we scroll back up, x refers to the side length of a triangle. So we have to reject a negative answer. X cannot be less than 0. So the only answer must come from this second bracket, and that tells us that the only viable answer for x is change the sign and divide by 3, 5/3. Number 20, one of them that has so much information. Yeah, you've got to be thinking, shall I put it in a table or shall I go into a Venn diagram? Well, we have got one of those situations where it's all about French, German and Spanish. It doesn't subdivide any further by going into gender or year groups or whatever. So you are safe in sticking to Venn diagrams. Always make them slightly bigger than you think you're going to need. I'll go for French up here, German and Spanish, and we do one thing at a time. 31 speak French. Don't know where that 31, but these these 4 segments need to add up to 31. We'll come back to that. 2 speak the lot. 4 speak French and Spanish, but not German. That's that overlap there. That's that intersection. 4 speak French and Spanish. Oops, just done that one. 7 speak German and Spanish. So this intersection here must add up to 7. 5 plus 2. 8 don't speak any. Outside they go. And 10 people who speak German speak at least. So no one speaks just German, but we put a 3 in there because the 3, 2 and the 5 give us that 10. We now have enough information to fill in the French, because the French only speakers would be 31 minus the 4, the 2 and the 3. In goes the 22. And we can fill in the Spanish because we've got all sections filled in. So we simply do 50 minus all the numbers we can see. We get 6. It says 2 are chosen at random. So the first one's out of 50, the second one's out of 49, and the probability that they both only speak Spanish. That's the 6 we wanted there. So 6 Spanish speakers on the first choice, and assuming one's been picked, 5 on the second choice. That's all you wanted. Times in them on your calc, 6 over 490 or 3 over 245. Number 21, prove that they are, oh, here we go again, me and technology. For number 21, I've again written them all out in full on my worked answers. So here I'm just going to read through them. Prove that those 2 triangles are congruent. First statement is that A to D must equal B to C, because opposite sides of a parallelogram are equal. You're told ABCD is a parallelogram. And then that angle ADP, that's this right angle, equals that angle there, which is basically given in the question. They're both right angles. And we've got angle P to A to D and angle Q to C to B. In other words, in here, all right, PAD is there, and we've got QCB is there. Same as the first thing, really. We've got opposite angles of a parallelogram are equal. So you've got angle, side, angle, hence congruent. Okay. Next bit I think is a bit harder. It's a weird one. It's worth fewer marks. Whoops. I want a different colour pen so I don't confuse ourselves. Let's go for blue. Explain why AQ is parallel to PC. So I would go with, come on blue pen, as I keep telling you, me and technology, no chance. You've got AP, this line there, and QC, that line there. They are in fact equal, all right, because of the fact that you've just proven that they are congruent triangles. All right, they have to be the same. So I would make that statement. And then you've got that APCQ is a parallelogram. All right, so use congruent triangles to reason those sides. If those sides are the same length, they are parallel. And then APCQ is also a parallelogram, and opposite sides are equal. So we can also say that because it's a parallelogram, those two sides are parallel. There's other things, other reasons you could go through, but I thought that was the easiest one. So you're actually using part A because ADP contains that side there, that one. So I'm using part A. We know that they're equal and so on. You also know that if you want to go down the angles route, all right, we know that a lot of angles are the same size. But again, like I mentioned before, it's only worth 2 marks, so don't overcomplicate. All right, keep it simple. But it's a strange way to end it. And I think B, for fewer marks, was harder than part A. But there we go. You win some and you lose some. So I hope that's helped. I have explained that in full on my worked answers again. So go and have a look at how I've set that out. It's amazing, if I do say so myself. But anyway, folks, hope that's helped, and I'll see you on the next one.